Good morning. This is Daily Jab number 6, and today I'll talk about why I was raised Catholic and then turned atheist, and finally I am agnostic. So, raised Catholic, I don't think that depended much on me, right? I live in Chile, it's a majority Catholic country, and my family was Catholic, both mom and dad. Dad, now that I think about it, maybe not so much, but my mom was definitely Catholic. And I went to a Catholic school, which, honestly is pretty common here in Chile. It's not, like, how do you say it, like as intense maybe as it is in the US or in other parts of the world. So yeah, until the age of like 6, I think that I was like really, really religious, maybe 7 even. But around the ages of like 8, 9, and 10, I started to having some doubts about, like how did we know that God existed? And once again, like around age 9 or 10, some things happened in my life. It was a rough time. Yeah, my parents got divorced. So I was in a lot of pain. And, as a small child, when you're in a lot of pain, you start wondering, like, why? Why is this happening to me, right? And I was like thinking, because of course they taught us like all about the religion and what does it mean to be a good person. And I was like, but like God, like I am a good person. I am a good child. I have like good notes. I don't bully people. Why is this happening to me? And I really could not understand. I remember that being like something that really bugged me, like inside, like it didn't give me peace. I was like, why? And one day, actually, I can still remember. I was like, but why, God, why? And I was thinking, and then something switched into my mind, and I was like, what if God doesn't exist? And I remember at the time, because you're young and you're in a Catholic school, just thinking that was like, oh my God, am I being blasphemous? Am I doing something wrong by just thinking that or like questioning this? But I think that, quickly, I was like, wait, but where is like the evidence of a God? And then at that time, we had a computer at home and we had access to the internet. And I believe that it was around these times that Facebook was like a thing. Yeah, I think Facebook started like 2006. I was 9 by that time. So, as the years passed and I started getting more into the internet, I started seeing some videos about famous atheists or people that just didn't believe in God. And I started to learn a lot more about that. And actually, I was the very first atheist in my class. I remember it being like a big deal, like my classmates, they would tell me like, oh, Ignacio, like, don't say that God doesn't exist. Because of course, you're all like young, children, you're children, right? Like around the age of 10. So I'm guessing that, yeah, it was a bit controversial, but not too much, It was like, I was pretty firm on my beliefs, but it's a 10-year-old that says that God doesn't exist. But I remember I started trying to convince my classmates, and honestly, I convinced a lot of them. Like being the first atheist in a Catholic school and in a Catholic class is something, I don't know. I still remember being like, but think about it, and talking extensively with my classmates, and they slowly like realizing like some of the flaws, and flaws. I mean, there are many, like omnipotence. How, of course, like if you can't do anything, then can you create a challenge that you cannot do? And either if you can or you can't, then you can't do anything. So that's a problem. And specifically, I remember learning about the problem of evil, which is, okay, if God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and it's a good being, then why does he allow bad things to happen? And sure, you can make the argument that, because of free will, like God cannot stop someone from like stealing or murdering, and fine, like that's another discussion. But what about like natural disasters? What about disease? What did a 5-year-old, 6-year-old do to get cancer? How is that like just in any way? And you know, like once again, in Catholic they don't believe in reincarnation, so it's basically like you were born bad, or are you paying for something? It's, I don't know, it's a weird one. Um, but yeah, anyway, so that's the story about how I turned atheist. And I was an atheist for a very long time, you know. And I got into a lot of like atheist, like I don't want to say like circles, because it's not like I met any people, but like over the internet, you know. Back in those days in Facebook, you used to have groups for everything, and one of those groups was like atheists, agnostics, and, you know, people to discuss about religion. So, and I don't remember when, you know, but at one point I realized that being an atheist, and here I want to make the clear distinction, like you have the theist and the atheist, and then you have in between those categories you have the Gnostics and the agnostics. So the Gnostics are the ones that know for sure, I know for sure that God doesn't exist, I know for sure that God does exist. And then you have the agnostics, like I believe in God but I don't have proof, and I don't believe in God but I don't have proof. And I'm the latter one, because at one point I realized that it's kind of stupid to affirm that things does not exist. Why? Because this is a really like small experiment. Let's say that I tell you, oh, right here there's a unicorn, and you're like, that's false, I don't see it. Oh, it's because it's invisible. Okay, then I'll go and touch it. Oh, you can't because it's non-physical, you know. Well, then can I like take a photograph, or can I smell it? Oh no, it's because, and then you start like adding up qualities where it's like, well, you cannot prove that it's not there. And you can do that forever, honestly. And you can do that not like only forever, but you can do that with so many things, like ghosts, you know, aliens and supernatural beings. And that's the thing, you know, like at one point you realize that you don't have to like prove that things doesn't exist. It's the other way around. You have to prove that something exists just to be considered an idea, you know. There's the neighbor's dog. So yeah, and I remember, I'm gonna move, I don't want to bark in the video. And I remember having this discussion with a friend, because he was like, no, because like I can affirm that God doesn't exist. And I'm like, okay, well, why? Oh, because it sounds stupid, you know, the idea of a God. And I was like, well, I mean, you're right. But if you go back to medieval times and then you tell, you know, like some peasant, yeah, there's, you know, this like body in the sky, in the space, that actually sucks everything, like even light cannot escape it, and it breaks, you know, space-time. They will tell you like, that sounds like nonsense, that doesn't make any sense. But that does exist. It's called a black hole. So, you know, on one hand, I do understand the idea of my friend that, you know, it sounds stupid, therefore I'm going to affirm that it doesn't exist. But, you know, once again, if you go back to medieval times and you use the same reasoning, you would be wrong. So, you know, like, your reasoning does not hold. And why it does not hold is because you have so little information that you cannot affirm that something doesn't exist, even if it sounds kind of stupid, right? So, I mean, who knows? Maybe like in the future we will actually discover that there's a God, you know? But for now, with the information that I have, it doesn't make sense to me. And that's all that I can say, you know? Like, honestly, it doesn't make sense. I don't see any proof. And the guy back in medieval times would be totally right to say that. Not affirming that black holes doesn't exist, but it's like, I don't know, man. I don't see any proof. It doesn't make sense. I'll just ignore it. And yeah, that's how I ended up in the state that I am today. I am an agnostic, which means, or basically when people ask me about like religion, I say, I see no proof of God, or like I see no evidence of God. Therefore, I live my life as if it wasn't a thing. So yeah, I do concern myself with morality and I don't know, I guess the search for a deeper meaning. But honestly, I haven't found anything in like religion, you know? Or at least, well, okay, of course there's deeper meaning in religion, but what I'm saying is that I haven't found anything that's convincing. Because all the arguments are based on the assumption that God exists, and that's an assumption that I personally cannot make. So, yeah, I mean, that's my take on religion. That's why I'm agnostic right now, and I think I'll be for the rest of my life. But who knows? This has been Daily Yep. I'll see you tomorrow.